Hi, welcome to week 2 of the simulation overview for the Zoom simulation. So this week we're going to focus on profits, and we see here that just about every team made profits this round, which is not expected in an industry growing from 20 to 35% per round. Companies are doing pretty well. Now, let's talk about profits. So I had a conversation with a number of students that didn't think it was possible for companies to want to make lower quality products and sell a little bit less to maintain or grow profits. This is because most of you are under this cloud of being a consumer and being lied to for years through advertisements. So advertisements have clouded your mind, confused you, and made you think that all companies want to make the best product possible, put every effort in to give you the highest quality, best ingredients product at a low price. Now, this is the advertising brainwashing you. You have to understand that companies do quite the opposite, and it's one of the principles that this game is trying to teach you. Now, let me give you some examples since you probably don't believe me. Okay, if you look at HMOs, now these are related to health insurance. If anybody is old enough, they can remember that health insurance and healthcare have changed quite a bit. I can remember when I first started working that the copay was $5, and most drugs that was prescribed to me were free. Healthcare these days, my copay is up to $20. The copay on drugs is much higher. It's getting to the point where these HMOs are giving us less and less and charging us more and more, and we're getting lower quality service. The doctor office visit today is oftentimes less than 5 minutes. When I was much younger, the doctor would spend much more time with you, ask you a lot more questions, get to know you personally. So that's just an example of an industry where they're giving us a lower quality product and charging us more. Let's look at the oil industry. You all remember the big oil spill in the Gulf of Mexico. How did that happen? Well, British Petroleum was trying to save money, and they were not putting the best safety features on their rigs possible. And because of the low quality, the lower measures of safety they had in their rig, their fail safes, they didn't have enough of the recommended fail safes, just the bare minimum of what the government required of them. And we see how that turned out. Let's look at the TV industry. You're getting a lower quality product than what networks used to give. Networks used to have scripted shows with paid writers and actors, high quality shows. Now, the majority of the network TV schedule is reality shows. Why? Lower quality and cheaper. No actors, no writers, very cheap to produce. It makes tons of money. So we're getting a low quality product. So these corporations can make much more profits. Still not convinced? Let's look at how consumers, I found a bunch of articles here on how the food companies are shrinking our packaging but charging us the same price. One classic area is yogurt. So you can see here that this yogurt brand was 6 ounces, and bear in mind that yogurt used to be more like 12 ounces, and it's been steadily shrinking down to 6 ounces or less over the past 10 years, but the price has remained the same. So here's an example where you're getting less product but the same price. You never see these companies advertising, hey, we're making our product smaller but charging you the same amount. No, they advertise how great the flavor is, how much protein, how healthy the bacteria is in yogurt. They're brainwashing you. Here's the LA Times talking about they don't look different in size or shape, but recent jars have developed a dimple at the bottom. They push up at the bottom or contouring in the sides to reduce the ounces. For example, peanut butter has been famous for doing this where they contoured them in and they went from 18 ounces to 16 ounces. You're getting 10% less peanut butter, but the same price. If you put the two jars together on the shelf, they almost look like the same exact jar, but they're different. Now, supermarkets, in some cases, they try to trim packaging to save costs, but in a lot of cases, they're selling you smaller rolls of toilet paper, smaller containers of ice cream, without you even knowing, and without them Here's a picture of the two different Skippy sizes, and you can see here's one is 16 ounces, here's one 18 ounces. They look about the same. What you don't notice that there's a dimple here that contours in on the peanut butter, and there's a push up at the bottom, and there's also a higher, the peanut butter is filled to a higher neck. So, just another example of how the product sizes are shrinking. You're getting less food, and sometimes with the food, they give you lower quality ingredients as well. There's a case of soda and juice manufacturers switching to high fructose corn syrup because it was cheaper than cane sugar. Many medical studies have suggested that high fructose corn syrup is not healthy for you and leads to more health problems than regular cane sugar. The high fructose corn syrup industry is so fearful now, they're actually putting commercials up. Let's see if I can find the commercial. Okay, so here's the commercial. I'm going to play this for you. Okay.
Wow. You don't care what the kids eat, huh? Excuse me? That has high fructose corn syrup in it. And? You know what they say about it? Like what? Honey, it's that it's made from corn, it's natural, and like sugar, it's fine in moderation. Love that top. Oh, well, thank you.
Get the facts. You're in for a sweet surprise.
Okay, so here is a follow-up response to that first commercial.
Want a bite? I thought you loved it.
I do. Take 2 bites.
No, it's got high fructose corn syrup.
So?
Well, you know what they say about it.
What?
That
That it's made from corn? It has the same calories as sugar, honey, and it's fine in moderation.
no, that it contains high levels of reactive carbonyls, compounds which are linked to diabetes and diabetic complications, as reported by Dr. Chi-Teng Ho at the 234th National Meeting of the American Chemical Society on August 23, 2007. That the fructose elevates triglyceride levels, increases insulin resistance, and confuses the body's natural sense of satiation, which can lead to obesity and, again, diabetes, as reported in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition, April 2004. And that it's hard to eat it in moderation because it's an ingredient in so many products, thanks to the artificially high price of real sugar in the U.S., which is caused by tariffs on the importation of sugar and direct subsidies to the corn industry. Oh, and sugar tastes better. I'm running out. Hey, I got you a sweet surprise, right?
Okay, so if the sound on that wasn't that great, you can easily go to YouTube and look up high fructose corn syrup commercials. But there's an example when the industry is trying to fight back, trying to re-brainwash people that high fructose corn syrup is good, where a huge volume of medical evidence is saying that it probably isn't. Okay, but I'm no expert, so please don't fire back at me with whatever you think about this topic. I'm just stating what's in the free press right now. Okay, other product sizes that are changing. Tropicana's gotten smaller from 64 to 59 ounces, a 7% decrease. Ivory dish detergent has gone from 30 to 24%, a 20% decrease. Kraft American cheese used to be 24 slices, now it's 22 slices. Even Kirkland's signature paper towels used to be 96 square feet, now it's 85 square feet. Haagen-Dazs ice cream used to be 16 ounces, now it's 14 ounces. Scott toilet paper, 115 square feet, now it's 104 square feet. Chicken of the sea, salmon. I was thinking more tuna, but 3 ounces to 2.6 ounces. Classico pesto, 10 ounces to 8 ounces. Hebrew National Franks, 12 ounces to 11 ounces. So just more examples of companies giving you less, charging you the same, and claiming that it's the same quality. Now, also, cereal has roughly reduced their size and most of the ingredients of their boxes by 15%. Snickers bars have gone down about 11%. There's a Tropicana orange juice. The Haagen-Dazs ice cream tubs, not only the tubs, but also the Haagen-Dazs bars have gone down in quality, in size quite a bit, their ice cream bars. Here's chicken in the sea tuna, Frito-Lay corn chips and potato chips. Reese's Peanut Butter Cups, Bounty paper towels, Heinz ketchup. So just more examples of how companies are giving the consumer less, charging the same to increase profits. Now, in the simulation that we're using, some of these factors apply too. Because when you're creating your car, a lot of people are coming back to me and saying, I don't understand. You're telling me to give them to the lower end of the consumer expectations. Yes, if you're trying to make a profitable product, you're going to have to not make the highest quality car. Now, as a consumer mentality that you have, you're trying to rush to give, I want to have the top end or exceed the customer expectations. I want to make the best car possible. You're not focusing on profits. There's a balance between the two where if you make a car that doesn't meet certain criteria, they won't let you build it. You'll get an error message. So there's a balance between offering a decent product and having a company making a decent profit. As far as the consumer buying public, use your advertising and convince everybody that you're making the best product possible. And when it comes to car manufacturing and car shopping, consumers are driven more by style and commercials. I've never met anybody or talked to anybody who actually went down to every dealership and said, how many safety features does this car have compared to the others? How many miles per gallon? How many luxury features? What are the months of reliability? People just don't comparison shop on all the aspects of the cars that much. Maybe they do care about miles per gallon, or maybe a different person cares about horsepower. But the idea is the person who is a really smart shopper and checks all these statistics, okay, they might lose that customer. But it's better to lose 10 or 100 customers and sell your products at a profit than a loss. So that's something that is the key strategy to a lot of companies, and a secret they don't really want consumers to know. So if you're acting like a consumer when you make your vehicles, you may be disappointed by your results in the simulation. Now, I am not in support of this. This is the game. I didn't make the game up. This is how companies operate. And you have to realize that, their goal is to do this, lower the quality, increase the prices, make bigger profits. At the same angle, they don't want you to see that they're shrinking their products or giving you reality shows rather than scripted shows with, high quality sets and writing, because of course they're not going to advertise that. Now, getting back to the simulation where we started, I just want to kind of make that point clear that you're a business owner here. You're making a product at a profit and you're trying to please investors and shareholders. You're not a consumer of this product. Okay. It's not to say that your products aren't low quality just because you're at the lower end of the customer expectations. That's not to say your products fail more or break down or don't have quality components. It's just you don't have to meet or exceed the consumer on every expectation. They're kind of understanding about that. As long as you meet what they care about most, they could be more willing to go with your product. Okay, so we see here that everybody made a profit, which is great, but the points are quite a different story. Some teams did very well. We have a couple teams here making over 900 points. Quite a number of teams making over 800 points and being in that zone. Most companies were in that zone between over 500 points is where you want to be. Now, some companies had lower points and didn't do well this round. And you have to remember that if you did well last round, you have to do even better the next round. So what investors expect is that if your profit margins went from 40 to 45% in year one, in year two they must go from 45 to 50%. You can't deliver the same gross profit margins or less profit margins. That's not going to make customers happy. Investors happy. If you look in the real world of the stock market, anybody that releases earnings and their gross profits percentages go down, the stock gets decimated. So this is what analysts, when they look at your company, if your profit margins are going down, that's going to affect all your ratios, and this is going to be a problem, and they're going to give you negative ratings on your company, and your points are not going to be as high. Now, if we look, the stock price for all teams have increased which is good. Some have a steeper slope than others. This team right here has a very nice, Frank's has a very nice slope here. They're probably one of the biggest gainers in stock price, but everybody was able to increase stock price, which is good. Now sales, you could see here that we have a couple teams outlying the lower end of the sales. They need to really watch their forecast and try to understand why their sales aren't as good. But you can see every other team here, and including this team, really was able to increase their sales. Okay. If we look at earnings per share, we had this company, Star Cars, overtook 212 Motor in total earnings per share this round. And we had, again, two companies who were flat on their earnings per share. And you can see these are the same companies that are flat on their sales. So, I mean, sales do matter. Profits matter the most. But if you can't increase your sales, you're not going to dramatically increase your profits. Okay, so let's look at the company rankings. And we see that Frank's Autos had the highest points this round. Now remember, if you look at total points, Frank's Autos had a tough start. They didn't really make a tremendous amount of points the first round. And they're coming off of they're sort of the student going from D's to B's or A's. So they had a terrific year-over-year change was terrific, and they earned a lot. That's what's great about this game. If you have one bad round and you correct yourself the next round, you can make back a lot of those points that you've lost. Now, we have a couple teams, the real changeover in the current points for this round. Only one team lost points, and the majority of the class got very close to 500 or above. So, I would say, majority of the class hit their goals for the week. Profit margins, I'm seeing where last round I've seen most profit margins around in the 40 percentile. We have people moving up from the 40 percentile into the 50 percentile, which what I'm saying, you have to constantly increase your profit margins. And we have a few companies here at the bottom who decrease their profit margins, and that's going to have a significant effect on your stock price, on your overview points. You can't drop the ball on profit margins. Okay, and stock price, 212 Motoring has the highest stock price here, which is very good. As far as total points, now these are the points being added up. We have a number of teams who are over in the 1,200 or higher range of total points. And remember, you're almost halfway there to the 3,000. We're only 2 rounds. We got 6 rounds in total to go. Okay. So let's look at a company that didn't do so well and see if we can learn from their mistakes and kind of improve upon them. So just give me a second here while I set this up. Okay, so here's an example company. Now this company was able to increase sales, and they earned some points for increasing sales. However, their profit margins went from 44. So in the first round they did good. They went from 40 to 44%. So investors like that. But now they backtracked down to 38%. So that 13% decrease cost them points, and their operating margins went down 6%. It went down from 26 to 20. So that's a 23% decrease, which means they must have increased their advertising expenses, but not fast enough to make up for their shrinking pool of profits. And their net profit margins went from 18 to 14, another 23% decline. Now, when your profits go down, generally it's harder to have the other ratios do well. But let's see, they did okay in the total asset turnover, but their total, their equity multiplier, the ROI, which is, I think that's explained down here, or actually in the student user guide. The return on investment, the equity that people put in the company, is lower. The earnings per share have decreased, which is very rare for this sim, because it's so easy to really expand and make the profit. So that was not good. They may have issued some outstanding stock, and that could be a factor in that as well. And then even though their forecasting was good and they had a surplus, they didn't invest anything in the company. So this operational investments is a key, because people look at the company. If you're not moving forward and keeping pace with your competitors and your operational investments, you're going to lose points. So that is definitely an issue here. Now, okay, so on the production page, remember that you wanna if you have a surplus, you want to spend. I recommend you keep a 10 to $15 million surplus just in case of any surprise deficits. If you have extra money, it would make sense to, buy additional levels of operational investments because in the next round, you're going to get a $300 reduction per car manufactured for every level you purchase. And that's key to keeping your profits high. Now, this is what the auto industry does. Think about the autos from the 60s, 70s, and 80s. How did those evolve into the really sophisticated multi-featured safety features, all the new enhanced safety features we have today, auto lock brakes, ABS braking, multiple driving suspensions, and all the wonderful features and safety features we have today. And inflation adjusted, the cars are a similar amount of money. The auto companies invested heavily in new technologies, robotics, enhancements for their equipment, efficiency software to manufacture with the least amount of waste or spoilage. They put all this money into their factories to make them a real modern marvel. To be able to manufacture cars with less hours of human labor, less amounts of materials, to make a car that is a higher quality and a lower price. And they could take a lot of that savings and invest it back into key features of the automobile. So this is how companies compete. And this is how a company can, consumers are always expecting more. And you'll see with the sales department that the customer expectations are slowly creeping up. Although the prices are getting a little bit higher as far as what you can charge for the vehicle, there is a top end that you get limited to, because the customer expectations they go up faster than the amount they'll let you increase the price of the car. So the only way to make up for that is to have these operational cost reductions here. Now, I recommend you go into the industry tab and you start looking at other companies. Here's a company for last round. We don't know what next round will be for them because this is a year behind. But last round, they had $1,200 of operational cost reductions. This company had $1,500 of operational cost reductions. This is how they were able to maintain or improve their profit margins and also improve their demand by being able to give customers closer to what their higher end of their expectations are, but not sacrificing their profits too much. So that's a key consideration of this game. So now one other consideration that you might think of in the finance department here, one thing to think of is if you're getting some extra money and you want to retire some funds, you have additional funds that you can issue to help you move forward with the company and make investments. But keep in mind of this interest rate, 3.5%. If you borrow some additional funds, you have to understand that your interest rate is going to increase. So a lot of students have turned to stock. See the earnings per share here of $17. So a lot of students have turned to stock to borrow money because you're not going to be incurred a huge amount of interest charges. But actually, let me switch to a different. Okay, I switched to my demo game because I don't want to really go into anybody's student's account at this point. So I'm in my demo game here, and see my earnings per share here at 986. What if I issue, more stock? So if I issue more stock, you see my earnings drop to $8.81. So it went from almost $10 to down under $9. If I were to, retire some stock, you can see it now jumps up to $11 per share. So when you retire stock, all your earnings per share characteristics are going to increase, and that's a good thing. So be careful now that this is all about balance. If you borrow too much, if you're retiring stock and you're borrowing debt to replace the fact that you're retiring stock, your interest rates are going to soar. So this area of additional funds or retiring funds is all about balance. So you don't want to lean on borrowing too much equity and no debt, or borrowing all debt and no equity, because that imbalance causes your weighted average cost of capital to increase dramatically. So you want to play it smart here. When you start to get a surplus, for example, in my practice game, I have a $12 million surplus. I would probably just keep it at that. I'm pretty comfortable around 10 million, so maybe I'll retire $2 million worth of stock, and that will help not 20 million, 2 million will help my earnings per share a little bit, and So let's look over when I redid my round two here. I just kind of slap some numbers in here, and I'm trying to. Now, a problem here is the first thing I should do is go to my overview page and say, okay, what profit margin I left off at a 51% profit margin. So in my sales department, this is where most people make a mistake, is they make the cars and they're not focused on their profit margins. So here, obviously, my profit margins are not good. So I have to work to increase them, and I need to get them. Now, unfortunately, because I didn't invest enough in my operational cost reductions, I'm going to have to make a vastly inferior car due to the fact that I really can't let my profit margins fall underneath where they were. Okay. Now I realize I lowered my forecast because I realize I'm not going to sell at the higher end of my potential because I have to maintain my profit margins. Now remember that you need to keep filling out these reflective observations. It is part of what I expect for you to do for each round, and I will be awarding some extra credit at the end of the simulation towards the class for people who I feel did the best in filling out the observation reflective observation. It really helps you to understand what you're doing in the simulation. So I'm getting questions from students that need to really think about these reflective observations, and it turns the simulation in from just putting numbers into cells into more of a role-playing aspect. So I want you to play along and think like you're really running a company and come up with those good questions about, would this be true in the real world? Okay, so here in my production department, I had a lot of leftover inventory last round, so I'm going to manufacture significantly less because I want this excessive shortage to always be zero, because then my pro forma financial statements will be correct. If this is anything other than zero, the pro forma financial statements will not be correct. So that's a key consideration. And I'm going to buy a lot of additional operational investments to make my car company even more competitive. Now, it's important, these reflective observations down here, when they talk about capacity utilization, I see some students spending $10 million to buy an additional plant just to manufacture 50 additional cars. Your operational capacity is very low in that plant. Think of it, you're buying a whole production plant, hiring hundreds of people just to make 5% of their capacity. They could make 1,000 cars for the year, but they're only going to make 50. So that makes no sense. You got to keep an eye on your capacity utilization. Sometimes it's better to lower your forecast and have to spend an extra $10 million buying a plant that you absolutely don't need. Okay, so I see that I have a surplus of $30 million here. I'm going to retire some stock. And I'm going to do this, and that's going to pump up my earnings per share. And I have the excess money, and I still have, some money left over. But I'm just going to stay with that for now, and I'm going to process the round forward. And if you see the previous round, I made 850 points in my practice game. Now I only made 330. So why is that? I did what you said. I increased my profit margins, but what happened? Why did I lose points? Okay, so here I had an unexpected deficit, and that's 100 points. So I would have been at 430 if I hadn't had that unexpected deficit. And my return, my equity multiplier and return on equity are negative. So I didn't increase my profits significantly enough to help the returns on equity that my shareholders were used to. So I lost some points there, and I just didn't fare well, exceedingly well in some of the areas. I lost some points in my forecast because my forecasts were not good, and I think this is the root of why I didn't do very well with my points. If I go to the production department, I see here I had 1,000 cars unsold on my sedan class. So that's really what hurt my points, gave me an unexpected deficit, and really did poorly this round. And it's one of the reasons I have a poor return on total asset returns and my return on equities, because having that all that excess inventory. If I go to the finance department, I'm going to actually go to the financials and look at my let's see, my inventory. My inventory is at 20 million, and I was expecting it to be zero. And that high inventory really was causing me my problem. So, but I'm not too upset because I spent exactly 2 seconds developing my forecast. I didn't do any research. I just slapped the number in there, and that's why that happened. If I had spent a little time looking at the user's guide or understanding the charts from the previous round, um, the charts from the previous round uh, that show me. Okay, again, this is my practice round, and if I paid better attention, I could have sold more luxury cars and obviously over forecasted my sedans. So this is the game here is I find a lot of the aspects of it very true to life, very eye-opening. And the students that have been going back into the practice game and almost kind of mimicking their decisions in the real game are having a better idea of how things are progressing and how their decisions are going to affect their results. So it is difficult to run a company, and it is difficult to consistently improve and impress your investors. Now, having a strategy on how you're going to manage your company, your sales, your profits, how you're going to deal with competitors is what I'm hoping this game will teach you. In addition to the fact that you've taken a lot of MBA classes and they're all separate. Accounting over here, finance over here, marketing over there, operations management over here. This is a chance to tie all that together. How does my selling and research development decisions affect my marketing, my demographics, my advertising, and how would the sales, the way I design my cars, and the amount of money I spend on marketing and the concepts of my marketing can affect my actual production and my capacity, and how is that going to affect the money I need to raise to pay for my additional assets? So here you got your finance course and your accounting course, you got your operational management course, your marketing course. Sales could fit within a number of those courses. You have your leadership course. All these different courses are coming together in this simulation to show you how they're dependent on each other to make decisions, to run a company, to become successful. So at this point, I just really ask you to be a little bit more patient with the simulation. If you're not doing well, please feel free to jump into my weekly office hours and ask me questions directly or send me an email, and really try to look at the practice game some more. Don't be afraid to keep resetting it, keep rerunning it. And this assignment is more than just doing the bare minimum, which is just filling in the numbers and progressing forward. You really have to work at it to get the top scores. And you're not so much competing with each other, which you are definitely, but you're mostly competing with yourself. The overview points are your points compared to your points in a year-over-year basis. So you're competing mostly with yourself. Now, sure, the other students in the class are vying for the same sales and in the same market, so that's definitely going to affect you. But you really have to look at what was, and when you get this, gross profit margin, you should really stop and say, okay, how many cars am I forecasting, and how many, the number of cars I'm forecasting, and the total sales and the total profits going to make, and put all the cars together so you can create your own average, much like in the finance department. You're trying to recreate what's your total gross profit divided by your total sales. So you may even want to do some of these calculations in Excel to get an idea of where you are and where your points are going to be, and not let things move forward and hope for the best. You really got to sometimes put a little thought into this as you move forward. Okay, so I can see I kind of want to only spend 30 minutes on this wrap up. I hope this helped answer some questions and expand your mind a little bit to how companies think, how they compete, and they're quite different to what they want the consumers to think about how companies operate or perform. They really, at the top levels of companies, it's quite different, their reality, as opposed to what their advertising is trying to make the general public feel about their company. Let's take British Petroleum again. How many commercials have you seen on British Petroleum advertising how they invest in alternative energies and solar power and how they're planning for a better tomorrow? Did you ever stop and realize that the amount that they're actually investing in these alternative energies is much less than the amount of money they spend advertising the fact that they're investing in alternative energies? Because it's a scam. They want to make you think that they're a great company. They actually repainted all the gas stations green and white to make them seem more sustainable and more green oriented company, but they're really just a dirty oil company that they don't want consumers to have that impression of them. So it's quite interesting when you really look at the psychology behind these organizations and what they do. Some of them, if it wasn't for the government really controlling with regulations their pollutions, their safety features, they would be even worse. So that's the last thing I'm going to say today, and I hope that this helped you out a little bit. And again, if the sound wasn't so good in those YouTube videos, just skip over that portion, and you can actually easily look up the links for them and listen to them on your own. Okay, have a great week, and I'll see you soon.